Hi everyone and welcome to today's training. I'm Rebecca and I'm one of the team here at Urban Sketch, and today we're going to be asking Ian some questions about finding your style. So Ian, how did you find your style as an urban sketcher?
Wow, that's a great question, Rebecca. I think personally, you don't go looking for a style. I think a style finds you. So through practice and through drawing, over the years, I think eventually you find your own way of working. I think everyone's got their own unique line. I think everyone holds the pen in a certain kind of way and describes things in their own unique way. And I think through practice, your own style kind of evolves. I think if you go searching for a style, if you go looking for one by perhaps copying other artists, then it doesn't become yours. So I think to find a style that you own, I think first of all, you've not got to think about it, but just do it. And I think through the course of doing and drawing, I think your own line will come through and your own way of shaping things. And it might be things like, you go looking for certain subjects. So when I'm drawing outside on location, there's certain scenes I go looking for. And in some ways, that's part of my style, where you've got like a foreground, a middle ground and a background. And also the choice of colours that I use as well, which is just, personal to me. That's part of my style as well. But I don't kind of force it. It's just what's very natural. So I think style just evolves naturally, and I think if you go looking for it, it's not yours then.
You won't find it.
You won't find it, no. And it'll be somebody else's, it won't be yours. So I think you've got to be very careful with style. Because people always say to me, you've got a very unique style of working, and I don't think I have. Because I just draw what is natural to me. I just look at the world and I just draw it. And I know I hold the pen in a certain kind of way, and I use certain colours, and I like to kind of blend things in a certain way with lots and lots of water. But to me, that's just natural. It's very kind of natural to me.
Do you find that your past experiences or past training as a fine artist or as a teacher come into play nowadays within your individual style?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I was working in education, I was always working with very small children. So I was a primary school teacher, and then I was a primary school trainer. So I was training teachers. So most of my teaching involved working with very, very small children. So I'd have to break things down into lots of very small steps. So when I'm working with adults now who are very advanced and sophisticated and lots of experience, I still break it down into really tiny steps and treat them like children as well. And they love it. Yeah. I mean, everybody needs to know where we're going. Everyone needs to know the big picture. Everyone needs all the steps explaining to them. Everyone needs to be told what they're going to do, and then you tell them what you've just told them as well afterwards. We all need those reinforcements constantly. And because that was such a big part of my life as a teacher, working with small children, it's something that I do now quite naturally with more advanced grown-up people, but they still really enjoy it. And I think also, on the same point, Rebecca, all the techniques that I use now, things like when you're doing cobbles, for example, I fill in all the little black spaces in between to make the cobbles pop. I used to do that with the kids at school. I do that with 5 and 6 year olds. When you take a line for a walk across the page, that was something I used to teach children when they were trying to describe how to draw a sunflower. And you do like a continuous line around the outside to show the petals. And all those techniques now I use on a much more advanced, higher skilled level. So all those training experiences I've had over the years are all very much, part of what I do now.
I suppose it's all relevant, isn't it? And everyone who is new to urban sketching is almost like a 5-year-old child new to art as a whole. It's something that you're having to sort of start off fresh with. So when you go out and looking for a scene, you've mentioned that you look for similar scenes. Do you try and tell any particular stories within your choice of locations?
Yeah, you do. And I think every scene's different. Every scene's got its own story. And I think sometimes you don't quite know what the story is going to be until you start digging deep into the observation. So for example, if we take an example of a course that we've done recently, so let's take Barcelona. So in Barcelona, we were doing a lot of the work on the Gaudi facades. And I didn't quite know what I was going to find. You kind of know what they look like. You do your research, you look at them on the internet and stuff. But once you actually start drawing them, you look deeper and you see the flowing contour lines. You see the symmetry, you see the organic shapes, you see the reference to dinosaur scales or birds' nests or whatever it might be. So you then start unpicking those stories. but it's a very personal story because it's the story of what you see and what you think is important. But then you could contrast that with something like, say, Robin Hood's Bay, where the story is about the history of the place and your knowledge and understanding of the place. So they're completely different stories each time. So the story element is really important because for me, it's that human experience of being there on location and kind of unravelling all the different layers of what's in front of you. And to be able to record that in a visual way is just magical. It's just so good.
Yeah, brilliant. So when you're approaching these things, I know, for example, with Barcelona or with Robin Hood's Bay, as you've mentioned, there's a kind of theme between each of the sketches. They're all situated on one location. They all have the same kind of reoccurring subject matter.
Yeah.
Is that something you do in your personal sketches as well, or is that something that you do more so for a course or a workshop?
No, it's more for the course really, and it's something I'm really interested in. So for example, my next trip is to go to New York, which I'm really excited about. So when I go to New York, I'll find a theme within New York. And I've got a feeling it's going to be lines, vertical lines, lots and lots of vertical lines, which seems really quite simplistic, but it's taking those lines for a walk and stretching the picture and making this sense of scale and everything being huge, and also populating it with windows and turning windows into patterns. So that's the idea at the moment, my concept behind it. But once I'm there, it'll probably change when I experience it in real life. So the theme is important. The theme helps you to bind them all together. So wherever I go, if I do a series of pictures on location for a course, there's something that links them together that makes it unique about that place. So for example, when I went to Mexico early this year, it was all about the colour. But I didn't know that until I got there.
Yeah.
You have to wait. You do lots of preparation in terms of, you know, that building looks really interesting, maybe I'll sketch that, or that street corner looks cool. So you do lots of prep, but once you're there, it's the actual experience of being there that drives the themes. And it's the heat, it's the light, it's the energy, it's the culture, it's the food, it's the people that you're teaching and you're talking to. So all of those things help you to capture that theme, which for me is one of the most exciting parts of it.
Definitely. Have you ever pre-planned a theme and then you've got there and it's been something completely different to what you thought?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. There will have been lots of examples of that. So for example, let's go back to Barcelona. When I did my research on Barcelona, I thought there was going to be La Ramblas, for example. I thought La Ramblas would be a big part of it because that's the big street that cuts the way through. And I thought that would be a big part, and we do at least 2 workshops based on Las Ramblas. But as you know, it wasn't possible to do it because it was so busy. There was all sorts of stuff kicking off. So that was going to be a kind of like a theme throughout the Barcelona one. But then once I saw the Gaudi buildings, it kind of changed, because you see the Gaudi buildings online, or you look at pictures of them and you do your research. But once you actually see them for real and you see how big they are and how imposing they are, it became much more of a kind of a Gaudi, a homage to Gaudi. So that Barcelona trip changed very much, and I think it's important to have your mind open about these kind of things as well. And another one, probably a better example, was when I went to Paris in the summer. So I did a series of workshops in Paris, and I thought it would be like the greatest hits of Paris. So I thought we'd do, the Sacré-Cœur, we'd do the Louvre, we'd do the Eiffel Tower, we'd do Notre Dame. And when I got there, it just felt like doing all of those would have been like a picture postcard thing. Yeah. And what I really got interested in was just the cafes and the canopies that come outside, that stretch outside, the bright red and the bright yellow canopies, and then the awnings, and just the kind of the cafe culture. So it was kind of the ordinary view on the corner, which was much richer in terms of storytelling, because it's a much more personal story. Yeah. You can tell a very personal story about a random cafe than you can, for example, if you sketch Notre Dame. Because you're sketching Notre Dame and there's like 10,000 people looking at the scene at the same time. So it doesn't seem quite as special. So Paris was a very good example of that.
So there's almost kind of no preconceptions with a French cafe, because most people wouldn't have heard of that, whereas, the Notre Dame, most people assume that's what it looks like. So you've got some sort of structure there. Yeah. So when you're advising someone in terms of finding their style, would you recommend that they go out and explore the scenes rather than working off a photograph, say?
I would, but only if people can, Rebecca. You know, I'm one of these people that I don't say you've got to always go outside. You know, some people do. Some people get really excited about this whole thing and think all urban sketching has to be done outside. But I'm just very mindful that a lot of people can't do it, you know, for all sorts of reasons. One could be practical reasons, health reasons. Some people are just nervous and scared. You know, some people live in a place where there's just nothing outside for them to draw. So I think there's a lot of value in working from images on a screen or from photographs. And I've done it myself over the years as an artist. The big difference is that the experience is totally different when you're outside. You know, you're seeing so much more and you're living and breathing the same space that you're recording. So if you can get outside, I'd always recommend it. But I'm just very mindful that, you know, a lot of people can't do it. I mean, when I'm teaching holiday workshops, you often find that a lot of people say they come on these trips because they feel safe in numbers. You know, they love the fact that there's a group of people around and they feel secure within that space. And that's something you've got to be quite aware of, you know, because there's quite a few elderly people come on these trips and they're travelling by themselves and they'd love to sketch outside, but they just don't feel confident. And that's why the holiday events are just so wonderful for them.
I suppose as well nowadays there is other ways of experiencing a location without physically being there. You know, Google Maps Street View I think is something that we use quite regularly when looking for locations. And the same with video footage. You know, when we're delivering these courses, we always try and include a good scene setting kind of vibe, so you can hear the birds or you can see the traffic and you get a real feel for the area. Which I think is fantastic, and you can also use things like YouTube and search the scene.
One of the things I do when I'm travelling somewhere, so for example, I'm off to New York soon, and you drop the little person onto Google, and you have a little look around. But it's always a good idea to do a 360 degree spin, so you rotate yourself all the way around, because you need to see what's behind you as well. Because you can find, say, an amazing shot of, say, the Chrysler building, but if you look behind, there could be a massive, big, smelly, ugly bin, or you could be outside, you know, a swanky restaurant or something. So you know you're not going to be able to sit there. And the great thing about the Google Earth is you can rotate round and see what's behind you, and that's a really important thing to take into account. Because I've done it before. I've located some wonderful compositions, and I've turned up, and you're standing right in front of perhaps the most inappropriate thing, which is normally going to be a restaurant. And they're about to put tables and chairs outside.
And they don't want you sat in the way.
They don't want you sat outside. And it can get very expensive as well. You know, constant stream of coffees and then you need the toilets afterwards as well. So you just have to be careful. But, you know, Google Earth and, you know, the other technologies we have available to us now are just wonderful for, you know, sourcing these locations.
And in terms of you finding your own style and developing your own techniques, have you always used the materials that you use today?
No. So when I was a baby artist, when I went to art college, I mainly worked in oils. So for a long time, it was oil paint. It was still cityscapes. I was still trying to capture like the experience of being in a busy place. So I did my arts degree in London, and I was still trying to paint the scene around me, but it was always done in oil, and it was probably a little bit more abstract than what it is now. And then gradually over the years, I transited into watercolour. And then when the urban sketching thing took off, it became kind of pen and watercolour. So it's been a very kind of gradual thing. But the constant theme has always been the kind of the built environment. I mean, even though we do things like seascapes and landscapes and things like that, it's mainly kind of buildings and you know.
That's what interests you.
Yeah, kind of complex scenes, because that's the thing that fascinates me kind of outside of art. It's how you work out the space that you're in, you know, how you kind of orientate yourself around. So when I go somewhere, like for example, we went to Robin Hood's Bay last year to do the filming, you know, I kind of needed to know, where is everything, what's around that corner, you know, how do you get down to the bay, you know, where's the ice cream?
Where's the ice cream for Cam?
For Cam, of course, yeah. But you're trying to work out where things are, and then once you've worked it all out, you feel okay. And art and creativity and urban sketching helps me to do that. You know, even though you're fixed in one spot, after you've done the drawing, you know the space that you're in, because you're not just looking at that one thing. You know, you're looking at everything around you. You're watching the traffic coming past, and you're interacting with the people. So you're getting to know the people as well. You're getting to know the seagulls. You know, you're getting to see how many ice creams Cam's eating. So all those things, they just help you to understand the space that you're in.
Do you think, so you mentioned then that your style was previously quite abstract.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, when they join your workshops and your courses, they struggle with the sort of abstractness of your style. So do you think that because you've learned abstract before realism in a way, that your work is easier to be abstract, and that's what makes you looser and more?
Possibly, yeah. I think that's a brilliant question, actually, because one of the things that we talk about in some of the courses is this relationship between the objective and the subjective, you know, and I think it's a really interesting thing. So I obviously am drawn towards the objective, the thing that you can see in front of you, you know, the starting point, the building, whatever it might be. And then during the course of the work, you're starting to become much more subjective, not kind of abstract, but more subjective. And that's about how you make a picture. And that's when the formal qualities come in. So things like composition and tweaking the composition to fit the page, which we do loads of in all the courses, you know, placing the pens on, sketching the outline, doing the outline again in a kind of more specific way. They're very much abstract qualities, because ultimately you're making a picture. So I think I'm very much driven by that. And then when it comes to the colour, you know, using complementary colours, using, if you like, cold colours and warm colours in the reverse of what they should be, you know, so you're tweaking things a little bit. How you hold the brushes and how you do sweeps of colour in a really kind of dramatic way, which are not really to do with observation, but they're just more to do with drama and, you know, kind of like surface qualities on the paper and effects that you can achieve. So I think all of those are kind of abstract things that I learned at a very early age, and because I've kind of got them almost like as a toolkit, I feel really I should try and push them into the kind of representative work. Such a big word to say. Figurative, let's use figurative instead. The figurative work that I'm trying to do. So although I'm recording the scene as kind of realistically as I can, I'm still playing with all these formal qualities that I've learned over the years, and hopefully I'm able to teach them as well. That's what I'm trying to do. Just can't always say them.
Is there anything in a scene that you think, I am not drawing that, I absolutely hate drawing that, or oh God, another...
Pretty much most of it, really. There's loads, yeah. I mean, bins often don't get a look in, you know. We take bins out.
And you just ignore them.
I don't even see them.
Yeah.
I mean, cars, for example, I miss most cars out. I'll maybe put one or two in if I feel it's going to really help with the composition. People, there's always people walking past. They don't get a look in because they don't keep still. And if I did put a person in, it would just look like a statue. It just wouldn't look natural. Yeah. So we don't put those in. But there's lots of things. But what's really interesting about that question, Rebecca, is you're not even conscious of not putting them in. I mean, we did a course a couple of years ago, and Cam, you'll remember this. We were doing the Anchor pub in Irby, and it was the pub tour. And at the end, we've been filming for about 2 hours, and at the end, I said, and there's a huge big thing there. It was, I don't know what it was. It was something to do with cables. It was a cable thing, whatever it was. What was it called, Cam? Can you remember?
Junction box.
Junction box. That's the word. It's so handy. Junction box. So I had this big junction box, and I genuinely didn't even see it. It had been in front of me for like 2 hours, and I didn't even know it was there. Yeah. I just completely ignored it. And the only time I actually referred to it was when I said, and we're not going to put it in. So I walked into the scene, talked about all the things we were going to include, a little bit on editing, and we're not going to put this junction box in. And they thought, oh, yeah, there is a junction box there. Yeah, but we're not going to put it in. And it was too late because I've been drawing it for 2 hours anyway. And it's almost like you train your eye just not to see things.
Yeah.
You just don't see them.
And that's the benefit of having your own work, isn't it? That you put in it what you want to put in.
Yeah.
So hopefully this little conversation here has helped everyone try and find their own style, and just get out and practice and have a feel for the area and use some of the techniques and the tips that we've talked about here to help improve your sketches.